Underhells Campaign. Game 8. Palanite Enforcers Slagtown Rangers vs Spyre Hunters Tek Reapers. Mission: Fuel Hunt. Long-awaited debut of the Spyrers, newest gang that has been released for Necromunda in the Book of Desolation. Starting gang list of Tek Reapers consists of only 3 fighters, alongside an Abyssal Ferryman team. But with double activation each turn and pretty lethal loadouts, they can dish a lot of damage while being very mobile and elusive. The mission for today is an Ash Wastes mission, Fuel Hunt. Players rolled pretty high, and 10 fuel barrels in total will be available to be looted. Looting the barrels requires a double action and a roll of a dice. Only half the time barrel contains some fuel. In other cases it can be empty or even explode. The gang with the highest amount of fuel points at the end of the game is the winner. If a gang voluntarily bottles and retreats, the opponent is the winner. Ash Wastes conditions make it dangerous to loot barrels deployed on the battlefield surface. Double action in that case makes a fighter lose a wound and potentially sacrifice himself for a fuel point. Malstrain horrors will start appearing from the second turn. Enforcers are a bit undermanned from the previous encounter with the Delac gang. One of their brood scums has died, and their leader, as well as one of the gangers, is in recovery. This leaves Slagtown Rangers with 2 champions alongside their Venator Taurus vehicle leading a bunch of patrolmen. Due to credit discrepancy, they opted to request help from the Underdog House patronage. It is a custom, random table created for this campaign. In this game it gave Enforcers a couple of additional brood scums to field during the battle. Spyrers field only 6 models on the battlefield, but have a total of 9 activations, rivaling that of the enemy. The leader, Sir Fox, is equipped with Toxin Whips, Mirror Shield, Web Incisors, Drop Rig and Grapnel Launcher. 2 other Spyrers are Jakara with Noggerblade and Bio Booster, and Oris with a melee upgrade to Power Fists. Abyssal Ferryman team has Skipper Kurtz equipped with a volatile Xenos weapon, Rud Fusil. Righand Arnold is equipped with a Chain Glaive. The vehicle is equipped with a grenade launcher and a couple of upgrades helping with tests and glancing and penetrating hits. Most of the fuel barrels have been placed near the road, but some ended up in interesting places, like on top of gantries or on a Munitorum crate. Gangs deploy pretty far away from each other, not wanting to have early losses of any of their fighters. They know how important it is to keep everyone alive to be able to use double action to perform a loot action. 2 vehicles deploy in front of each other on a road going across the whole map. The one that pulls the trigger first and makes itself revealed will probably suffer return fire from a lot of heavy hitting weapons from the opposition. Game starts with initial movements towards the mission objectives. Spyrers, especially the Huntmaster, use their superior movement capabilities to sprint towards the closest barrels. Fox used his grapnel launcher to pull himself on top of the gantry. In his next activation, he moved towards the barrel and decided to duke behind it. While pinned, it would be impossible for the enemy sniper deployed on top of the ruined monastery to target him. Bingo instead tried to shoot at the Ferryman skipper just behind the Spyre leader, but missed. Theodore, Jakara Spyre Hunter, decided to use his second activation to loot the barrel. He found the first fuel point for the Spyrers, but paid the price for staying still during its activation and lost 1 wound. Enforcers have spent their first activations to slowly advance towards the closest barrels, with no targets in the visibility or weapon range for them. They mostly utilized a set of roads spanning their deployment zone. Flash stayed safely behind a pillar, while Broodscum Fanboy managed to secure a loot crate, finding an ammo cache inside. Oris initially tried to bait the enemy by venturing on top of the bunker, but later jumped down and retreated to position himself just next to the fuel barrel near the road. Just as he did that, he was surprised by Boomer and his grenade launcher. Enforcer aimed in the direction of the custom rig, but the visibility range made the shot much shorter. The exploding projectile scattered right under Sulan feet, wounding and pinning him. After several loot attempts, only Theodore from the Spyrers and 1 Broodscum NPC on the side of Enforcers managed to successfully obtain a fuel point, while both other Spyrers failed to find anything inside their barrels. At the beginning of the second turn, a first Malstrain horror appeared, and it could do a lot of damage. Because the Enforcers got the priority, after their activation they could try and snipe Theodore, who just lost a wound from the battlefield surface effect. He approached the corner and fired with a last gun, but missed a clean shot at Jakara's back. Flash moved forward and hid behind a pillar, shooting at the Jakara with a solid round, but missed. With receiving so much heat from various enemies, Theodore moved towards the middle and hid behind the crates. To dissuade Flash from moving even further, the Ferryman skipper approached the edge of a technical bridge and opened fire from above. Turning his plasma to the maximal, he made a big hole in the Enforcer's armor, but 3 damage resulted in only a single wound dealt and 2 flesh wounds from injury rolls. To continue the momentum, Spyrers pushed even more towards the middle, trying to secure as many fuel points as possible before Enforcers could react. Theodore moved even more forward, being followed by Ferryman Righand. Aggressive play was thwarted by a group of broodscums that spawned just behind Jakara. In our campaign, horrors focus aggression on the closest model, and the newly arrived broodscums focused on one of the NPCs that joined the Enforcer's side for this scenario. However, a shot from the autogun only pinned the target. Flash knew that he didn't have much time left in the game, with only 1 toughness left due to flesh wounds. He decided to use a run and gun and drove deep inside the enemy's force, trying to circumvent Jakara's shield. Shot from a combat shotgun was unsuccessful. Not even a single damage got through. Response from the Spyrer was much more vicious. He turned around, charged and obliterated Flash with his Nogger blade. The lasting injury roll reflected that. Roll of 66 means a memorable death for Flash. His body fell down, with blood pouring down on the road. But instead of red-crimson color, it was a fluorescent deep purple, a sign of progressing malstrain corruption that touched him already. Could that be a sign that it is not the last sight of Flash in the campaign? Seeing such success, the rest of Spyrers advanced forward. Fox moved on top of the bridge, trying to potentially get into range to use his grappling hook to threaten Sniper Bingo. Meanwhile, Ora Sullivan killed one of the broodscums that was still hanging around the rear of Spyre forces. Slagtown Rangers, despite being outnumbered and losing one of their champions, tried to stay in the fight. Fanboy secured a fuel point on top of the crate for Enforcers, but shortly after was seriously injured by Custom Rig's long rifle. Delight, who was also occupying a ruined church building on the level below Bingo, avenged his slain fellow champion. He seriously injured Theodore, who bled out at the end of the round. The 2 surviving Spyrers had their hands full. Sullivan managed to kill one of the Enforcer's muscles, joining them for the game. He was positioned in a crossfire between the 2 vehicles. One of the stray shots managed to hit him and dealt another point of damage to him. Spyre leader Fox moved towards 2 barrels that were in the most infested part of the map. 2 initial broodscums chased after gangers from Enforcer's side. Shortly after, another group, this time 3 scums and a leader, arrived. Fox started culling them, aiming at the leader first. The sheer amount of bodies there was too much for him, however. When, in the following turn, another group of horrors spawned again in the same spot, it was basically over for him. He desperately tried to parry, with his energy shield, all the incoming attacks from toxin weapons of the mutants. But a well-placed shot to his back by the Delight's bolt gun resulted in 2 damage going through. With just a single hit point left, one of the last Tyramites charged and finished him off. This opened the roaming horrors to chase after targets deployed more in the center of the board. Tyramites used their flying abilities to threaten one of the ferrymen on top of the bridge. With 2 of the powerful enemies gone, Enforcers started to move towards the place where the Spyre Huntmaster died. Bingo was finally shot down from his sniper position by the skipper's Rudd Fusil, but the rest of the gang was free to advance. Delight and Bouncer were leading the way at this time. Delight continued his success by seriously injuring the rig hand. Tek Hunters also tried to secure area with 2 barrels. The way forward was poured by the custom rig, which was being followed closely by one of the Malstrain Gene Stealer horror that appeared. The last Spyre fate was sealed when one of the Enforcer broodscums seriously injured him and he bled out, gaining a Vox Ghost's lasting injury, reducing his willpower characteristic. This left just a vehicle left on the Spyre side. His continued persistence in passing the nerve test to retreat meant, however, that there was still a chance for Enforcers to secure the last 2 barrels and potentially outscore the Spyrers. There was a short cat and mouse battle between the policemen and horrors to try to reach the last barrel. But it was not to be when another gene stealer spawned nearby. It took Enforcers too much time to send another wave of gangers for the barrel, and Custom Rig finally failed the nerve check and retreated. The final score was 3-2 for the Spyrers. Spyrers only obtain and spend credits during the downtime. Their biggest strength comes from winning the scenario, granting each of their fighters 2 XP, as well as from securing terror points. In this scenario, 2 points were scored, one for killing the champion and the second for killing 4 or more enemies by direct actions from a Spyrer. MVP was awarded to Theodore for slaying Flash, and LVP went to Fox, who failed to obtain any fuel points and was defeated by a horde of Malstrain horrors. In case of Enforcers, they had 2 mortally wounded fighters. Bingo was rushed to the dock, who was saved for only 50 credits. As for Flash, his lifeless body was transported back to Slagtown Rangers' base of operation in the Secundian exclusion zone. Discussion about promoting another patrolman to sergeant rank went deep into the night. Leader Mountain, himself recuperating after a grievous wound from the last mission, and a sole surviving Sergeant Delight had differing opinions on how to progress with the gang. Both were still not yet corrupted by the will of the Malstrain Patriarch. They did notice a strange behavior from Flash in the weeks prior to his death, as well as physical oddities. Elongated extremities, sheen of his skin and soulless eyes. He was one of the first from the old guard of Slagtown Rangers that gave in to the corruption. And maybe this connection with the powerful Xeno's psychic entity allowed his body to survive, despite catastrophic damage inflicted by Jakara in the mission. Flash is following the rules for Xeno's resurrection. With each surviving lasting injury, he will become less and less human, eventually transforming into a mutated horror. His Xeno's transformation results in the rest of the gangers shunning him. He will have increasing difficulty to be involved in lead by example and group activations rules. It will culminate in being unable to be placed within 3 inches of fellow gangers, before his eventual final transformation and deletion from the roster. We have only one more game left from first cycle, where we will again see Spyrers. This time they will face the current leader of the campaign, Delac Gang of Will of the Old One. See you next time.